breaking and entering, drunk and disorderly, law and order. A former prosecutor and a defence barrister, not your usual pairing. And the result? Conversations about crime and punishment that are guaranteed to get you thinking.
Welcome to Justice Matters, a weekly podcast with Lizzie Green and Jay Merchant. Our episodes are every Monday on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. Follow us on Instagram at Justice Matters Pod for clips. Enjoy the episode. This episode deals with allegations of sexual misconduct involving a minor. Discretion is advised. Hey, good morning, Liz.
Good morning, Jay.
There's a lot going on.
There is a lot going on always.
Yeah, I was in Surfers and it's just there's a lot of activity there.
Well, look, I don't want to talk too much about it, but my third child is going to schoolies this week.
Yeah, schoolies is just a foreign concept to me. We didn't have anything like it in Canada.
Oh, really?
No, I mean, you have your graduation and that's it.
Ah.
So the fact that you got a location or multiple locations where students are going and doing God knows what.
It's not the students I worry about, really.
Okay.
It's the toolies.
Oh, the toolies.
You know, the people who go back year after year. They're too old for schoolies.
Oh, so they're not eligible for schoolies,
Yeah, and
so
they
they're
just
toolies.
go and hang out with all the young graduates. I don't know.
Yeah.
Just it's a week to stay home if you're not.
Yeah, and I mean, it sounds almost like reading the news and stuff. It sounds almost like a breeding ground for predatory conduct and behavior. And I'm not sure. I could be wrong. Like I said, we didn't have it, but.
Well, I mean, I guess there's an element of that anytime people go out.
That's true.
And I guess they know that there are a whole lot of young people all gathered together, a lot of them probably experiencing surfers paradise for the first time.
Yeah, I just picture it being alcohol, and I could be way off base, but alcohol, drugs, and sex.
I have in the back of my mind the controversy about one Bonnie Blue.
Bonnie Blue, okay.
She got quite a lot of attention last year because she was planning to come and she said,
"Oh, yeah, okay.
Parents, I'm going to be having sex with your barely legal sons."
Out of control.
Which was, disconcerting, but she wasn't allowed in last year, but apparently she's coming or having a presence this year.
So she failed the character test last year, but we're just going to stamp the approval this year.
Well, I think it was her work visa was not
okay.
allowed.
Well.
But she's just adamant to infiltrate the schoolies culture.
And somebody was saying that there was a huge media presence at the airport and that she's doing shows and radios and such.
I don't know. The thing that I heard was that even if she can't be here in person, she'll be sharing her fluids with the schoolies attendees.
What the fuck's that about?
I don't know. It makes my skin crawl
Yeah.
to think about what her possible motivation is and why.
Well, these are young kids. Like, they're younger. Like, they're of age, but, they're young boys.
And it's just so
And she's
base.
not young, I'm assuming.
I don't understand that thinking at all.
I mean, it seems to me that she's the reason why there's instructions on shampoo bottles.
Jay.
All right. So let's move into our episode today. And we all like feel-good sports stories. If you think back to 2002, Stephen Bradbury's epic win at the Olympics.
Yes.
I mean, you got to be in it to win it. And he was in it and
Classic
he won it.
moment.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so I'd like to talk today about figure skating. It's a sport that I haven't much familiarity with.
Not
but
a figure skater.
I can't do a triple sow cow. I don't even know what one is. But yeah. And a feel-good story for figure skating is an Olympian by the name of Harley Windsor. So I don't know if you watched the Netflix series Harley and Katja. I encourage everyone to watch because whilst there was a bit of tragedy at the end involving the female partner, the skating partner, I look at it from the perspective of Harley himself. He is currently 29 years of age, but since the age of 9, he worked on a sport that is unique to Australia. I mean, there's not much ice in Australia, and he worked very hard. And so in 2016, he did very well, and he actually made it to the Winter Olympics in 2018.
Wow.
And what's fascinating about Harley is his background and his heritage, but the fact that he is the first ever Indigenous Winter Olympian.
It does sound like a contradiction to have a Winter Olympian from, warm Australia.
Yeah, and he comes from, and I'm going to mispronounce it, and he can send me a message later, but the Gamilaraay people and the Wilwin.
Okay.
And so, yeah, it's got heritage there and history. And so a really good sports story in the sense of motivating youngsters and youngsters of different cultures. And so it's just a feel-good sports story. But with good sports stories, there is a darker side of sports.
Oh,
and
no.
that's unfortunately where I'd like to go today.
Okay.
And the reality is that another Olympian became the subject of media headlines, and it involves his U.S. ban from ice skating that involved sexual misconduct with a minor.
Oh,
Okay.
that's never good.
No. So this is Brendan Kerry that I'm talking about, and he's 30 years of age. Now, Brendan in 2016, 2017 was coaching in the United States for U.S. figure skating.
Okay.
All right. So we've got a relatively young person, and he's coaching in figure skating, but he's also competing for Australia. So Kerry is an accomplished figure skater. He went to 3 Olympics. So he went to Sochi in 2014, Pyeongchang in 2018, and he was the Australian flag bearer at the 2022 Beijing Winter Olympics.
That's impressive.
It is. And so remember those dates, 2014, 18, and 22. So what broke about Brendan Kerry was that on the 15th of May, 2024, he was permanently banned, ineligible, from coaching and competing in the United States.
Oh, wow.
Okay. And it followed allegations of sexual misconduct involving a minor. Now, it's important to note that there were no criminal charges at the time.
Oh, okay.
And he was investigated by U.S. Center for Safe Sport. So that is the governing body for the national sporting bodies over there.
All right. So he's an Australian, but was coaching in the US.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's also important to note that these allegations were in 2017. So they were prior to the 2018, prior to the 2022 Olympic Winter Games.
Okay. So was it more than one complainant?
Yeah. And so, as I said, we only found out about the ban because it was final in 2024.
So, I mean, do we assume they were investigating for all of that time?
Well, that's part of the issue, I guess, is why did it take so long for a decision to be made? And then why is it the case that U.S. Safe Sport didn't inform the Australian Olympic Committee, the Winter Olympic Sport Institute, and all of that?
Because that's a good 5 years after the allegations that he was our flag bearer.
That's right. And so it's important to note that the information that I'm going off of is limited because U.S. Safe Sport have virtually said that they aren't providing the reasons or the details. Now, keep in mind that these allegations were 2017. The decision was made in May of 2024. So I became a little bit of a keyboard warrior, and I contacted U.S. Safe Sport.
Did you?
I did. I wanted to know, all right, what were the allegations? I wanted to know the severity because I found it very disturbing that sexual misconduct involving a minor with a coach
was covered up.
Was not disclosed to the Australian sporting bodies.
Well, yeah, and not disclosed like that.
Not disclosed.
Why
Transparency.
the secrecy?
Exactly my point. So I sent them an email And this was in August, by the way. So this was well after the date that everything was finalized.
Yes.
And I said, look, I'm interested in the Brendan Kerry findings relating to his permanent ineligibility for figure skating. And I said, is U.S. Safe Sport intending on releasing the findings of this matter? Safe Sport, in general, is vital to the United States, but also Australia. And it would seem in the interest of transparency for the protection of minors and young persons in general that the full report findings be released, albeit redacted, to protect identities.
That sounds fair.
And their response from an Alison Neville was, the center does not comment on specific cases to maintain the integrity of the investigative process. The only publicly available information is on the database, which basically says his name, what he's ineligible from, and why, and the date.
Wow.
So maintain the integrity of the investigative process. Well, I'm sorry, Alison, the investigation has already been done.
That's right.
All right.
Well, unless they're investigating more.
Yeah. Well, it started in 2017. The central database was finalized in 2024. So it's permanent. So he appealed and was rejected.
Right. Well, that does seem all a bit elusive in terms of any kind of understanding of what happened.
Yeah. I mean, the people deserve to know if there's a pattern of behavior. And I'm not, because we don't have all of the details, I'm not saying that he is a serial predator. I'm not. But if there's a pattern of behavior, people should be aware of that.
But surely he's not still coaching in Australia.
I'm not sure if he's still coaching. So let's go into some of the details that I do know.
Okay.
All right. And I will say that these are Wall Street Journal, these are Daily Mail, and so they're media articles.
You know, I love the Daily Mail, Jay.
Well, I know, but I have to go with what I can. If they just give me the report,
Yes,
we would have a full
I understand.
account, right?
Yes.
And so some of the allegations involved, and this is from the Daily Mail, Josh Alston, a sports reporter in September 2025, involve allegations that Kerry had provided alcohol to a girl, encouraged secrecy around the relationship, and engaged in sexual activity when she was underage.
All of that just makes me so angry because that's such a position of trust.
Well, that's just it, right? We're coaching, we're impressionable. There's an element of power and, hope. Like, I want to make it to that next level.
And often that coach, relationship, they want to please their coach. They're impressed by their coach. There's so much that feeds into the potential for that to be abused.
Yeah. No, and it's just a vulnerable period
Yes.
in an athlete's time because, look, and I failed to mention, I did find some stats because the empirical studies that I found estimate between 14 and 29% of youth athletes experience sexual abuse or harassment.
That's outrageous.
And that's 14 to 29% too much.
Well, and that's the ones who disclose it, Jay.
That's right. And that's another feature. And that was, just for clarity, that's from an article from the Sexual Harassment Abuse Policies Youth Sport Programs Journal. So
that sounds quite official.
Yeah, much more official than the Daily Mail.
Well, no shade on the journalists there.
That's right. And so the allegations then, and this news article says Kerry told investigators he had consensual intercourse with the girl 10 to 15, maybe 20 times over a period of 11 months. Okay, now she was 16, turning 17. Kerry was 21 and 22, and U.S. Safe Sport determined that sexual conduct violated California law.
So, I mean, even if that had happened here, where the age of consent is 16, we have so many sort of disclaimers or considerations about whether or not consent is validly obtained. And one of the things that can invalidate consent is an abuse of trust or being in a position of power, because there are maybe not explicit threats, but there are implied consequences for not agreeing. You know what I mean? So
yep.
just to say it was consensual, I mean, we need to know so much more about that concept of consent in their context.
Yeah. So we've got a number of different allegations, I should say. So, but they found insufficient evidence to prove some of them on a criminal level. All right.
Common problem with
yeah,
sex offences.
Yeah. So there was an allegation Kerry forced a second skater into non-consensual sex in 2016. That's from Steve Larkin for the Australian Associated Press. And so we've got this shroud of controversy that is engulfing this Olympian. Then,
can I just ask, were the complainants all from the US?
No.
Okay.
No. The majority of them were, but I'm going to get into, because this has ended up in the New South Wales Supreme Court.
Oh, okay.
For a separate issue.
Right.
And that involves a 14-year-old from Queensland.
Oh, my goodness.
So we'll get to that.
Okay.
But in the Wall Street Journal, we have star athlete Gracie Gold, and she made allegations that she had been raped in 2017 by another Olympian. Now, it turns out that who she said alleged was Brendan Kerry.
Right.
All right. And so she made waves in 2017. She reported it. And
to police?
She reported it to the skating authorities.
Okay.
All right. So I'm unsure if she actually reported it to police because I don't have all the details. But in this story from the Wall Street Journal, she was doing an interview from a rehab center because she's been under anxiety, depression, and an eating disorder because of all of this. All right. And so she recounted the story to a guy by the name of Mitch Moyer in 2017. Now, he's a U.S. figure skating high performance director. So one of the top dogs in U.S. figure skating. And so that was relayed in 2017, and the decision wasn't finalized until 2024. Meanwhile, he's appeared in 2 Olympics previously holding the Australian flag.
Well, and also has collected other complainants along the way.
Yes.
Now, so I'm being careful not to say victims.
Yep.
But that's the implication, isn't it?
Yeah. And again, procedural fairness, he should have the right to respond to the allegations, and there was an appeal. And so, we have to be somewhat careful because it's not on a criminal side of things. It's on a civil, on balance test, right?
I just, not a new topic for people who listen to the podcast, but it is so frustrating that it is so difficult to bring criminal charges in sex offence matters because it's such a high standard of proof. And the very nature of those is secretive and out of sight and no witnesses and, all of that.
No, I accept that there's frustration on that point. I think part of this too, and it goes into it, is the fact that none of the federations, the skating, the Olympics, had any clue, no prior knowledge that one of its most high-profile athletes was involved in any of this because there was no information sharing.
But isn't that also, that's the prime breeding ground for this kind of abuse, because it is people who have that sort of good reputation and that public face of success and goodwill who can utilize that position to access vulnerable people.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, they've got a direct pipeline, right? As a coach.
And no one suspects them.
Yeah. I mean, there was comment from Miss Gold that says that, I made this report in 2017 and others saw him carrying the flag in 2022 at the Beijing Winter Olympics.
Yeah.
And just not understanding why any of this is happening.
And the courage it takes to come forward and reveal that you have been abused in that way. I mean, we cannot discount that. It's so difficult to lay bare what has happened and know that you might not be believed and that there may not be consequences, but to have it played out in such a public way where she has told people
Yeah.
and then he's lauded as a hero.
Yep. And I should note for completeness that in 2017, U.S. Figure Skating notified and reported the sexual assault involving multiple victims, including the possibility of minor athletes. And they even called Child Protective Services, but they were told at that time that it wasn't a crime. All right.
Oh, that is so frustrating, Jay.
Yeah. And so, as you said, the reality is that victims of sexual assault and sexual abuse are reluctant to be interviewed and to disclose these details.
And this is
right?
exactly why.
Yeah. And just on this, the concept of how young some of these people are. A year before this person met Kerry, she was moved to California to work. She was still playing hide and seek with her friends. All right. So that
breaks your heart.
It does. It really does. And so UF Safe Sport have a lot of questions that they need to answer. And, the public should be asking, why aren't you disclosing it? You can't rely on the fact that to protect the integrity of the investigation when the investigation is over.
I wonder, so immediately I think two things. Is it that they don't want any sort of shame brought upon the sport in general? So they're protecting their sport. But is it also because he was himself a star and they wanted to preserve that for the sport as well?
Yeah, I'm unsure. I mean, I have a hard time. If the Australian Olympic Committee and the Australian Ice Skating Association or Federation or whatever it is over here knew, they would have done something.
Well, you would hope.
Yeah. I mean, but to this day, he's still on the Australian Olympic Committee's website. Yeah.
No.
Yeah, I've got it right here. And I accept, procedural fairness, natural justice. But I mean, this is an Olympian enshrouded in controversy. Surely something in Australia should be looked at.
I think, we hear these stories and I say to my students sometimes, we've made progress. We've made some progress. We've changed some laws. But I think that the grim reality is that we haven't made as much progress as I would like to think.
Oh, and I agree 100%. Look, this matter should have been disclosed in 2017 when the allegation was made. Yes, you go through the process, due process, procedural fairness, natural justice. But if and when there is a ban, it should be disclosed. He's in a position of being a coach, mentoring, training young people.
And also, like, let's not take away the fact he's enjoying his position as an Olympian and someone who is looked up to and revered by others in the sport. And that seems to get preserved if he's still on that Olympic website.
Yeah, I was a bit taken back when I still saw him. Now, I don't know the processes that the AOC would have to take to look into it from an Australian perspective.
Surely it's a click of the button to just...
No, I know that, to take him off the website. But again, nothing has been proven beyond reasonable doubt. And then, what is the jurisdiction in Australia for something that happened overseas in terms of sporting?
I just feel like we should be erring on the side of caution.
Oh, 100%.
Like we're too far the other way. Until something's proved beyond reasonable doubt, we don't do anything. But I think a good person, for the most part, does not get allegations, does not get a ban. And so why can't we act on that as a precautionary step? And then if nothing is borne out, well, he can go back on the website and the rest of it. But why can't we side with the victims.
Yeah. No, I agree. And speaking of one of the complainants in January 28th, 2022, Claimant 1 is the name, and this is again from the Wall Street Journal. This is 2022 January, sent an email to the investigator, and this is the quote. So these are her words.
Okay.
The Olympics are right around the corner, and seeing that a confirmed sexual abuser and rapist who assaulted a U.S. figure skating member is going to be competing does not sit right with any of the victims or families, she wrote.
100%.
So
who was that email to?
That was to the investigator assigned to the case.
And was there a response, do we know?
No. Also, that the investigative report is under final review. So
no disclosure.
Moving to its conclusion, the investigative report is complete and under final review. So, and then a few days later, he skated at his third Olympic Games with the Australian flag as the flag bearer.
I am really struggling with that reality that there had been such, and it wasn't one person. It wasn't a classic he said, she said, because there were multiple people who spoke up to say he had been treating them this way.
Yep. So multiple allegations, multiple people, and it is concerning. Where there's smoke, there's fire, and here there seems to be a lot of smoke.
It really makes me concerned because I know for myself, and I am so pro prosecution, and I have faith in our justice system, and I believe that a lot of good gets done. But even now, in 2025, I still feel I would be so hesitant for someone that I love to commence proceedings for sex offence matters in our system, because I just know that the rates of conviction, the rates even of prosecution are so low, and it's such a traumatic experience. And then you hear this where they have come forward and they've given their evidence and they've told people what has happened, and he's been found to have done something.
Yes.
And still
in the United
States,
there's
no outcome.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, I know. And look, I look at it too. I mean, coming from a defense perspective, on balance versus beyond reasonable doubt. And on balance, we know something, and we know something because of the sheer number of complaints and etc.
Yes.
And, it might come back to be a matter where there is an element of beyond reasonable doubt. And I'll get to that right now.
Sorry, I just want to ask one more question.
Go.
So with that ban, was there any form of acknowledgement of the complainants? Like, did they receive, was there an outcome for them beyond him being banned?
That I'm not sure of, because we don't have any of the material from US Safe Sport. None of that's been disclosed.
I can't. Sorry. Total side issue.
Go.
But we talked about the Hockey Canada case and the settlement. We talked about workplace sexual harassment. I just read yesterday that there is a bill being put forward. I'm pretty sure it's in Victoria. Forgive me if I'm wrong. For really restricting non-disclosure agreements in workplace harassment cases.
Really?
Yes, and it's been discussed in Parliament, and I read a bit of that because the tendency with these kinds of cases, I feel, is to cover everything up and keep it all quiet, but for whose sake? And for me, I can't help thinking it's for the big dogs, the big companies who don't want reputations tarnished.
The organizations.
And so again, the victims get lost in that, but also the accountability of the offenders is reduced. And so I think let's get rid of, those non-disclosure. This investigation should be shared. It is complete. Why are we hiding the detail?
Yeah, there's a public interest in it. And
of course. And if people know that they're not going to be kept secret, it might make some people think before they do things.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll just touch on one of your points that you just made. We did talk about the Hockey Canada and how difficult it is for complainants to give evidence, but also to be put through that process. I mean, they're reliving what transpired over and over and over,
Yes.
whether it's on the stand, through depositions, affidavits, cross-examination.
And we know the evidence is that they're re-traumatized
Yes.
every time they do that.
Certainly. I guess the United States has a huge difference in terms of personal injury damages. All right. So you can sue for millions and millions and millions. And so that is still an option that is available for the likes of Gracie Gold, for the likes of the others that have been wronged by this person.
But who's going to pay it?
Well, that's a matter that I can't answer. Right?
No, but is it meant to be him?
Yeah, it would be. Or unless there's some sort of disclosure agreement that athletes sign that they won't take, against the sporting organizations. This happened in 2017. The allegations started in 2017. Nobody finalized anything until 2024. And that delay is unexcusable.
It really is.
And so if that's not a cause of action for Gracie Gold and everyone else, I'm not sure what would be.
Can you practice over there?
No, I can't. I'm restricted myself. And so when this report came about that it was finalized and he was permanently banned from coaching in the United States, it's all published on their website, not the report, but the fact that he's banned. The New South Wales Ice Skating Association, actually, because he's from New South Wales, the New South Wales Ice Skating Association sent out an email to its members.
Okay.
Advising them of what has transpired. So the allegation and then the result that Brennan Kerry has been banned permanently from the United States for coaching.
That sounds responsible.
Well, it was until Brennan Kerry and his legal team got a hold of it. Now,
why could they take objection? It was just a statement of fact.
Well, what has since transpired is that Brennan Kerry has commenced proceedings against the New South Wales Ice Skating Association, which is trading as New South Wales Ice Skating Association, in the New South Wales Supreme Court for defamation.
Okay. I'm pretty sure I understand defamation. It has to be untrue.
Yes. And whilst I don't have the details of the claim, the gist of what I uncovered in the media reports, because this blew up. As soon as he started proceedings here, it blew up because of the allegations in the United States. Now, had he not commenced proceedings, it might have went under the radar.
Yes.
But similar to somebody else we know, a.k.a. Gable Tosti, a.k.a. Eric Thomas, who has recommenced proceedings, this is now going to be ventilated.
Which I love.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they sent an email to their members regarding the sanction because Brennan Kerry was affiliated with that association, and the email content has resulted in defamation proceedings. Okay. And so this went before the court. This is the only court document that I could access.
That's pretty ballsy. It
is. It's interesting because there's a bit of from the media reports, the flavor that the team, the legal team is articulating is that he's been labeled a pedophile and a child predator type.
Not
by the email. So the email alleged, and I haven't seen the email, but that is what I'm gleaning from the media reports, that he has been deemed or something similar to a child predator or pedophile.
So it may have been a more comprehensive email than a statement about the ban.
Yes, and that will all come to light because we're going to court.
Wow.
So this matter actually went to court in July of 2025 this year, so not long ago. And it was the New South Wales Supreme Court. And I'll just give the citation for anyone that wants it. It's 2025 New South Wales Supreme Court 833 in front of Justice Rothman. Now, the reason why it went to court was because, all right, we're going for defamation. Part of a defense is that it didn't happen, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or vice versa. And so His Honor had to deal with the fact that there was a complainant that's underage. And so whether or not a suppression order is appropriate in the circumstances. So again, the decision he went through talks about the defamation proceeding, that the allegation that Brennan Kerry alleges is that the skating body defamed him by publishing a note to its members regarding a sanction by U.S. Center of Safe Sport.
A sanction? It's a ban. Let's call it what it is.
Yep. And it names him as an Australian Olympian and a coach in this proceeding, on the record, on the transcript.
Wow.
And so the sanction was imposed as a consequence of findings of sexual misconduct involving a minor.
Holy moly. All right.
And then what I found when I went through this decision, and this goes back to some of what you raised about commencing proceedings, is at paragraph 9, Justice Rothman deals with the first issue relating to a Queensland incident. Mm-hmm. So this is something that I never uncovered in any of the media reports. So the fact that it's before the New South Wales Supreme Court at the hand of Brennan Kerry, this allegation is now ventilated.
Good.
It's out there.
Good.
So we have a Queensland incident. Now, the incident is said to have occurred in relation to a 14-year-old.
Goodness.
And the conduct, if true, would involve the commission of an offense under Queensland law. So we've got a 14-year-old, and we have the judge in this matter issuing a suppression order saying that nobody can name this 14-year-old.
So I'm guessing he didn't bring up the 14-year-old. So I'm wondering, was that mentioned in the email that he has taken exception to?
I'm not sure. Somehow, somewhere, there is a 14-year-old at the time, and we won't know yet. But when this matter goes to trial, goes to the hearing for this defamation matter, more will be revealed.
And I also wonder, about the timing of it all. So the email went out. I wonder if maybe a complaint was then made because that had been shared, and that's when he decided to take the defamation proceedings. I'm really curious about how the 14-year-old's allegations came forth.
Yeah, me too. And whether or not it was, you do your claim and then your reply, and maybe it was in the reply or something of that nature. And
interesting.
So I'm not quite sure. But we wouldn't know about this had the matter not commenced, had he not went for defamation. And this is an interesting variable on this matter, because in Queensland, there's no statute of limitations.
No.
So if this 14-year-old is giving evidence and at any point decides to commence proceedings criminally, this 14-year-old or this then 14-year-old can still do so.
Yes. Yes.
And so I would be very cautious of ventilating any of this.
Well, I think bring it on.
Well, yes, but if I'm looking at it from his legal team. And so the 14-year-old or then 14-year-old still has options available to her. And that is very powerful.
Yeah, it is.
So if it is the case that there are myths, truths told in the course of the proceedings, and she does have a look at Gracie Gold's account and everyone's account, she can still commence proceedings on what transpired with her.
Good.
An interesting concept, though, because Justice Rothman, and this is a great decision, talks about it's notorious that child victims of abuse, more so than other victims of abuse, have difficulty in reporting that abuse because of the publicity generated by reporting. It's a detriment to their mental health and to the administration of justice.
Yeah, I also, it does also bring to mind, we talked about Grace Tame in an earlier episode, and she worked really hard to remove a law that said that victims cannot self-declare themselves. They had to remain confidential, and she didn't want that for herself. And so I do agree that anonymity is super important for kids if that's what they want. But I also feel like we have reached a point, I think, where victims are stepping forward and revealing their identity because that assists in holding the perpetrators to account. I mean, think of the French case, Giselle, whose husband had for years drugged her and let men rape her, and she waived her right to anonymity, and she's paved the way for real reform over there. And I'm not saying that this victim needs to have her
and
name
we wouldn't
out
want to
there.
put the weight on her shoulders
Not at
either.
all.
Yeah.
But while I understand the need for anonymity, but I listened to what that judge said, and I think yes. And for those victims who feel comfortable to reveal their names, it is a powerful thing.
It is. It is. I mean, think about it. We had, what was the stats? 14 to 29% of youth athletes experience sexual harassment or abuse.
Yeah.
And we've got the body that investigates this waiting from 2017 to 2024 to deal with it.
And still protecting him to an extent.
Yep. And, if you take a look at U.S. Safe Sports strategic priorities, it's accountability. Okay. It's prevention. Okay. It's education. And I mean, there has been a shield over this. And so, yeah, I accept privacy is important, but so too is transparency.
Yeah.
And if there's a pattern of behavior that has a shroud of controversy over an Olympian, such as Brennan Kerry, it needs to be dealt with and not 6, 7, 5 years later.
No, that's unacceptable. I guess we'll be following the defamation case.
Yeah, I certainly will. I might even go down and watch it, to be honest with you.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I've been down for a few. I went and saw Mark Latham's.
Did you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
And so I'm a big fan. So we'll see what happens. But this was unacceptable. The Australian sporting organization should have known something. And then at least we can say, all right, somebody from Australia has looked into it, investigated it. And now that we have an allegation involving a then 14-year-old, I think that this defamation matter, Brennan Kerry's up in a spot of bother.
Well, maybe his chickens are coming home to roost.
And at the same token, we have to accept procedural fairness, natural justice, and all of that. So we will see.
I said maybe.
Yeah, no, I know. I know you said maybe. I'm just covering all the bases. So.
Oh, gosh. It is one of those matters that makes me cranky.
I know. And I think back to when I was growing up playing hockey. There was a hockey coach by the name of Graham James who abused boys, not in my hockey league because I was never that good, but abused boys that, turned out to be NHL hockey players that came out in their later years. And he spent time in prison.
Oh, definitely not the only coaches who have abused that position.
Yeah. So we went from a feel-good story involving Harley Windsor to a darker side of the sport, but I think it's important to have a broad base.
Yes, and I did not know that we were ice hockey competitive, so that is good to know.
Yeah.
Yes,
and
thank you.
It's Harley and Katja for anybody that wants to have a look on Netflix.
Yes, finish on a happy note.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jay.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you for listening to the episode. If you enjoyed it, please rate and review the podcast. If you're interested in clips, check out @Justice Matters Pod on TikTok and Instagram.